band that owned the charts, then disappeared almost overnight. A lead singer who walked away at the peak of success, taking the group's fortune with him. Contracts that fell apart, labels that collapsed, and families torn apart by fame. This is Inside the Pop. Today, the 10 greatest R&B bands who rose to the top between the 1960s and 1980s, and the real stories behind why they vanished. Number 10. The Emotions. In 1977, Best of My Love made The Emotions one of the biggest acts in music, a Grammy win, a #1 single on the pop, R&B, and disco charts simultaneously. Producer Maurice White of Earth, Wind and Fire had transformed a struggling trio into superstars. They followed it with more hits, including 1979's Boogie Wonderland, alongside Earth, Wind and Fire. It looked like the beginning of a dynasty. Instead, the 1980s brought a slow fade. The Emotions bounced between labels Red, then Motown, chasing a sound that no longer connected the way it once had. The group never officially broke up, but the momentum that made them a household name never returned. One perfect run of hits, then silence. Number 9. The Delfonics.
Eyes have come to you with a line that wasn't.
Producer Tom Bell built the Delfonics' lush orchestral sound around William Hart's falsetto, delivering hits like La La Means I Love You and a Grammy-winning Didn't I Blow Your Mind This Time. For a moment, they defined Philly soul. Then came the fracture. Due to a restrictive contract that limited the group's ownership of their own songs, Bell eventually stopped working with them entirely and moved on to bigger projects. In the mid-1970s, brothers William and Wilbert Hart split the group in two over a financial dispute, each brother touring under the Delfonics name separately. The legal battle over who actually owned that name dragged on for decades, finally settled by a judge only in 2007. By then, the group that once defined an entire sound had spent 30 years divided against itself. Number 8. The Stylistics. Producer Tom Bell built the Stylistics into one of the most consistent hitmakers in soul music history, delivering 12 consecutive R&B top 10 hits between 1971 and 1974, almost entirely built around Russell Tompkins Jr.'s falsetto. Then Bell stopped working with the group in 1974, and the impact on their commercial fortunes was immediate and severe. Without Bell's production, the hits dried up almost overnight. The group tried label after label through the rest of the decade, chasing the sound they'd lost. Decades of internal tension followed. Tompkins himself finally quit in 1999, later saying plainly, "You can't make music with people you don't like." The falsetto that once defined an era walked away from the band that made it famous. Number 7. Rolls-Royce. Car Wash, written by producer Norman Whitfield for the 1976 film of the same name, turned Rolls-Royce into an overnight sensation, a #1 hit on both the pop and R&B charts, selling 2 million copies. More hits followed on Whitfield's own label, including Wishing on a Star and Love Don't Live Here Anymore. For a moment, they were the biggest band in soul music. But internal conflict between the band's founding members and lead singer Gwen Dickey, combined with Whitfield spreading his attention across too many other acts on his roster, slowly pulled the group apart. Dickey eventually left the band entirely. Whitfield Records itself went inactive by 1982. A band built on one perfect soundtrack never found a second act. Number 6. L.T.D.
Whenever I feel you touching me.
Fronted by Jeffrey Osborne's rich baritone, L.T.D. built a run of hits through the mid-1970s. Love Ballad, Back in Love Again, and Holding On all climbed the R&B charts. For a decade, Osborne was the voice that carried the entire band. His talent alone kept the group's momentum going through album after album. Then, in 1980, while the group was still on top commercially, Osborne left to pursue a solo career, a move A&M Records itself encouraged and supported. L.T.D. released one more album without him. It performed adequately, but the band never recovered from losing its voice. Osborne went on to solo superstardom. The group that made him a star quietly faded away. We're halfway through 10 legendary R&B bands who rose to the top. And today, we're finally telling the real story of why they disappeared. If you love the true stories behind the music, not just the hits, hit subscribe right now. It's free. It takes 2 seconds. Turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Now, let's get back to the countdown. The next 5 bands had the hardest falls of all. Number 5. The Chi-Lites. Led by Eugene Records' songwriting and falsetto, the Chi-Lites delivered a string of R&B classics in the early 1970s, including Oh Girl and Have You Seen Her, smooth soul ballads that made them one of the defining groups of the era. Behind the scenes, their label, Brunswick Records, was collapsing financially. Despite 4 consecutive top 10 R&B albums, Brunswick simply couldn't promote the group properly anymore.
Try to be hip and think like the crowd.
Frustrated, Eugene Record left in 1976 to pursue a solo career at Warner Brothers. The remaining members carried on under the Chi-Lites name, but without Record's voice and songwriting, the hits never returned at the same level.
Where to look for love, I just don't.
Lineup changes continued for years afterward. The group that once rivaled any vocal act in America became a cautionary tale about what happens when a label can't keep up with its own talent. Number 4. New Birth. New Birth built a reputation in the early 1970s for elaborate stage shows, full costumes, film projections, theatrical production years ahead of most R&B acts of the time. Frustrated with their management and record label RCA, the group split from producer Harvey Fuqua entirely and signed with Buddha Records in 1975, immediately scoring their only number 1 R&B hit with Dream Merchant. But the momentum didn't last. Lineup instability plagued the group through the rest of the decade. Key members, including the Wilson brothers, departed following internal disagreements just a few years later. By the early 1980s, New Birth had cycled through label after label and lineup after lineup, never recapturing the creative spark of their peak years. The elaborate stage show outlived the band's chart success by years. Number 3. The Sylvers. 9 siblings from Watts, Los Angeles. The Sylvers became one of the most successful family groups in R&B history, behind producer Freddie Perrin, scoring a massive hit with Boogie Fever in 1976. As disco's popularity faded in the early 1980s, so did the group's commercial fortunes. Album after album performed weaker than the last. Then came a family tragedy. In June 1985, the youngest Sylvers sibling, who had never even been part of the performing group, died at just 18 years old. The group, already fractured by the shifting music landscape, officially disbanded that same year. A family built on music together couldn't survive the collapse of the sound that made them famous, compounded by grief no chart success could fix. Number 2, The Undisputed Truth. Producer Norman Whitfield built The Undisputed Truth as his psychedelic soul experiment at Motown, delivering smiling faces, sometimes a warning anthem about hidden betrayal that climbed to number 3 on the pop charts in 1971. For a moment, they represented Motown pushing its sound somewhere entirely new, heavier, stranger, more politically pointed than the label's usual output. But Whitfield's attention was constantly split. Juggling The Undisputed Truth alongside The Temptations and his other productions meant the group rarely got his full focus for long.
It just might hold you back.
They never matched that early peak again. Whitfield eventually left Motown to start his own label, taking his best ideas elsewhere, and The Undisputed Truth faded into being remembered for one great song instead of a great career. Number 1, The Ohio Players. Built on relentless deep funk grooves, the Ohio Players dominated the mid-1970s with a run of number 1 albums and hits like Fire and Love Roller Coaster, a run few funk bands of any era could match. Their provocative album covers made them nearly as famous as their music, and for several years they were one of the biggest acts in all of American music, funk or otherwise. But as disco rose and radio formats shifted at the end of the decade, the raw, heavy funk sound that made the Ohio Players famous started to feel out of step with the moment. Contract disputes and lineup instability accelerated the fall. A band that once headlined arenas spent the 1980s playing to a fraction of their former audience, their sound overtaken by the very genre shift they'd helped set in motion.